All right, hello guys, and welcome back. We are now in the divisional round of the playoffs. Super wild card weekend has come and gone. Couple big games. Only really one game that was really a blowout. So let's talk about that one first, because I mean, actually there were two games that were kind of a blowout. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about the first one first. Seattle playing the 49ers, and it wasn't even really that big of a blowout. Seattle kept it close. They went down 10-0, came back, led at the half 17-16, I believe, and they up until the end of the game it was kind of a close game all around.
Yeah, but especially in the latter half of the third quarter and going into the fourth, the 49ers had a huge game. Brock Purdy, it kind of seems like in the first half he kind of had some rookie playoff jitters, and it seems like they solved that at halftime. So big win for the 49ers. They're looking very dangerous because they were able to get the run game going. Christian McCaffrey, 15 carries, 119 yards. That's averaging 7.9 a carry. Debo Samuel, 3 for 32. That's 10.7. Even Brock Purdy showed he can get out of the pocket and run. Debo Samuel had a great game receiving. So did Brandon Ayuk. And they still have guys like Kittle, Juwan Jennings, and Elijah Mitchell. And their defense, it stepped up, I think, in the latter half of the game. So that's a big win for the 49ers. And I think they're still looking quite dangerous.
I gotta be honest, the way they played last week kind of brought me back to like they're looking like they're a little bit human, which I'll save a little bit more on that once we get later into that.
Yeah, because there's a few games where I could say that about the other teams.
So I kind of want to save that, but I do say the Seahawks made them look like they were human, and that's kind of gonna go on to my point for their future matchup, but we'll get there later as we finish going around. But yeah, I mean, Seattle looked like they were putting up a fight up until the end of the game, and then the 49ers kind of got that chokehold on them and held them there and didn't really let them do anything else. Uh, but they did finish off that game. I believe the next game that night on Saturday was the Chargers Jags game, which was
Hmm.
probably the biggest game of the weekend. Uh, Obviously, Chargers go up 27-0 and blow that lead.
Yeah, they were up 27-7 at halftime, and then
And
they
Trevor
lost.
Lawrence threw four picks in the first half.
Yeah, I don't know how the Chargers, like, I don't know how you do that. That seems like something you have to actively try and do. And there's a great clip of, I don't know if you've seen this on Instagram, but a Chargers fan had fell asleep at
Oh
halftime.
yeah, I've seen
He
that.
had just got woken up, and his friend was like, "They lost," and he was looking so
Did
confused.
you
I
do you
thought that was
see
funny.
do you listen to the Pat McAfee show?
Occasionally,
So he was talking about that game, and he said his wife fell asleep during the game, and it's like 1 a.m. and he's half asleep, and she gets up and he's like, "Oh yeah, the Jags won," and she's like, "What?" And she's like, "Do you mean the Chargers?" And he goes, "No, the Jags won." She's like, "What?" And he's like, it kind of waked him up a bit because she was so shocked. But yeah, Doug Peterson mounts an incredible comeback. Trevor Lawrence obviously going from four interceptions to four touchdowns at the blink of an eye. They made some great adjustments at halftime in order to come back out flying the way they did. And then honestly, the biggest play of the game, that 4th and 1, with about a minute left in the game, and they run that T formation. Penn State has done that a lot this season too, where they put Travis Etienne on the outside, give him the outside run. You see that burst from him to get 30 yards downfield and get him at the 10. And that kicker just barely snuck that ball into the upright to complete the comeback. But they win 31-10. Chargers fire their OC. And this is where you see the argument of why you don't play your starters in games that are useless, because Mike Williams wasn't in that game. Now, I mean, they went up 27-0, so obviously not having him didn't have that big of an impact in the front half, but I'm sure having him in the second half would have been huge.
yeah,
And Brandon Staley decided to play his starters in the last week, and Mike Williams fractures his back, and he's out for that game. And I'm sure that's something that Brandon Staley is going to be thinking about now in the future in those games.
yeah.
Uh,
This comeback has got to be going up there. I don't think it's as great as these two, but
It's the third
uh,
third best in NFL history.
yeah, the Bills and Oilers is I think the biggest deficit that we've ever seen come back. The Oilers
In
were
the
up 35
postseason,
to 3. Yeah, in
because
the
the Vikings
postseason.
broke that record this
Mhm.
this season.
Yeah, they were up 35 to 3 and then they somehow lost, and this was when the Bills were around the time when they were going to the four Super
Yeah,
Bowls in a
four
row
Super
that they
Bowls. Jim
lost, and
Kelly,
obviously.
Andre Reed, who caught that game-winning touchdown.
Mhm. Yep, and obviously the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl, that blown lead. So this
Well,
game has got to be up there.
actually, the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl wasn't even the second one. It was a Colts game.
Well, I'm just talking about in terms of context and in
Yeah,
terms of
biggest. It is a
not.
very big,
Yeah, I'm
well-known
just looking at
comeback.
in
It will
total,
be.
not in terms of the biggest point deficits, but I'd say some of the biggest games.
Uh, but yeah, that game was shocking. Another shocking game was the Dolphins and the Bills. I think
Yeah,
we
this
all
was.
expected the Bills to come out and just kill Miami, but the Dolphins didn't go down. They fought hard. Skylar Thompson played well, their third string quarterback. They didn't want to start Teddy Bridgewater because he had a finger issue. And so they started Skylar Thompson, and he put up a fight. I got to say, Skylar Thompson, as a third string quarterback, he just got drafted this season. I don't think he really could have done anything better. He played really well. The defense gave him a shot. Josh Allen turned the ball over 3 times. Uh, I don't really think there's not much more you can ask from Skylar Thompson. Jalen Waddle had a couple major drops, which would have been a difference maker and possibly could have won him the game. But honestly, I'm more shocked that the Dolphins were able to hold their own than the Bills not being able to just strangle them and take that game by themselves.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about the Bills because, especially the past few weeks, Josh Allen has been throwing a lot of interceptions, and I think that's something that needs to be worried about because when you go against the Chiefs or somebody like that who have such a potent offense, you can't afford to give that many turnovers because the Chiefs' offense is they're going to score, and they're going to be playing the Bengals. So if they throw a few picks, I mean the Bengals' offense is most likely going to capitalize on that, and you cannot do that in a big game like that. So I think it's something that the Bills need to be worried about. I still think they're great. They still probably should beat the Bengals on paper, but I think that's a more interesting matchup now, considering the context from a few weeks ago as well as what we've seen.
I have heard that argument a couple times about the fact that against better teams, with their quarterback, even if two is in that game, you give a team a
Yeah,
short field like that, they're gonna score. They're not gonna
yeah.
just stall out like Skylar Thompson did. So
Yes,
he
but
does have
Thompson was 18 for 45, and the Dolphins easily could have won that game.
they definitely could have. They were in it the entire way. Also, another thing is what was I was gonna add to that game is, I think some of those players are just, I don't entirely think it's on Josh Allen. Yes, those are bad passes, but like
You
if you
understand?
look at that pick that he threw to Xavier Howard that was meant for John Brown way deep downfield, he was in an improvising mode. He was kind of scrambling. He was out of the pocket. John Brown was just kind of lottie dottie dying around down there, 50 yards downfield. And I don't think John Brown was really expecting the football because that's not a typical throw that a quarterback is going to make. So you're not going to see a quarterback on the run throw a 50-yard bomb and get it to you. So I think John Brown was kind of took his head out of the play. He kind of stopped at the top of his route, and then you see him again have to speed back up to go get that ball. So I think that kind of played into that. I think it's some of those receivers thinking, there's no way he's going to throw this ball. And then he does, and it's like, oh, shoot, I got to have my head in the game now. So I
Yeah,
think Josh Allen kind of hurts himself by being such a good playmaker, if that makes sense.
yeah. I think he's got the Favre syndrome, and like he has a good enough arm to where he can make those plays, but it's going to get him in trouble
Yeah.
because I don't know if any of you guys listening were old enough to watch Favre, but if you do, one of the big things outside of the outstanding plays he made was the back breaking interceptions he threw because he was a consummate playmaker, and that was obviously to his detriment. So sometimes being that good of a playmaker can actually work against you, and I think we just saw that with a
Yeah,
few
that
plays.
and that's I think that is a big piece of it. So it's like, but if you're gonna like to make big plays like that, sometimes you have to incur risk. That's a
You have
big
to
piece of
take
it.
risks. I
Uh,
understand.
Going back to the Chargers game real quick, you saw the whole Joey Bosa thing, right? Did you
Yeah,
see the press conference afterwards?
I did not.
He
I made
basically
some
he
clip.
basically came out and said that he thinks these refs are coming after him and that these refs are find it funny that they're kicking him off the field and he's getting angry and everything, and he's like, I don't want to be the guy to speak out against the NFL and get a fine because they're gonna fine me $40,000 or whatever, but I think these refs are coming at me on purpose and I'm being held and putting myself in danger and they can't even talk about it. Joey Bosa might be getting some discipline this upcoming season from whether it's the team, the NFL, something. He's going to be getting some kind of punishment.
Yeah, and that I think that's a sentiment a lot of players have echoed, and that's across all sports. I'm not entirely sure if I completely agree with them or completely disagree. I can see the viewpoints from both sides, but I do think that's interesting. I think the league will fine him, but Joey Bosa, it won't affect him.
I'm also interested to see what the team will do because that's something like that's kind of just a bold statement to put out there when you're in the NFL. I mean, when you're that big of a guy, Joey Bosa's got a big name. Even though
Yeah.
he's the lesser of the two Bosa brothers, just being attached to that Bosa name, he's huge because Nick Bosa has come on so well.
Yeah,
So,
they're like the Watts.
yeah,
Being the lesser of JJ and TJ really isn't that bad of a thing.
yeah,
That's not a
exactly.
slur.
Joey Bosa, and I'm not saying that as an insult because Joey Bosa still is a very good pass rusher. I would not be mad if he were to come to the Eagles, but I'm not saying he's gonna. I'm just saying if he were on the Eagles, I wouldn't be mad. But he's a very good pass rusher. But with that name, he's got a lot of attention on him. Obviously, his brother's arguably the best defensive player in the league right now. So he's got a big name attached to him, and he's got to look out for what he's saying around in press conferences and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, going to that, we'll go to that Sunday night game and finish out the AFC. The Ravens at the Bengals. Another game that was probably closer than it should have been. About
Yeah.
point 0.6
Um,
yards away from a difference in the game. So
Yeah, the Bengals offense really didn't do as well as you think it would be, and that credit to the Ravens defense and credit to their offense. I think they did as good as they could have, considering all the context. But going on, I don't know if anyone heard, but Mike Vick said that Lamar Jackson should just put a brace on and suck it up, and I think that's very disappointing to hear coming from him because the same thing happened with RG3. I remember it like it was yesterday. He put on a brace and it ruined his entire career. And there's no other way to analyze that. It literally ruined his career.
and
He put on a brace, he did it for his guys, and it got him nowhere. He was out of the league in 5 years, which
it's also a little different. I mean, I'm not saying that he should just put on a brace and suck it up,
yeah.
but RG3 was dealing with an ACL. Lamar's dealing with a PCL, which is more about like the knee placement as opposed to the ACL. I believe the ACL is in the back of the knee and the PCL is in the side. So it's more about where the knee is placed as opposed to being in the back of the knee. So it has a little bit more to your movements. And obviously, if Lamar wasn't a running quarterback, maybe he does that. But you take out that ability to run and make jab steps and, plant your foot in the ground and go another way, you're taking out a huge portion of his game. I mean, looking at that Eagles game in the last week, not that I think the Eagles were doing everything they can to just kill the Giants, but Jalen Hurts wasn't running. And you also saw in those other games where they didn't have Jalen Hurts, you take out that aspect of a running quarterback, it takes away whole nother threat. So, I mean, you have to understand, playing Tyler Huntley was probably the smarter move because Tyler Huntley, yes, he's not Lamar Jackson with his mobility, but he's still got pretty good legs, and you have that running quarterback to your credit. So playing that was huge for him, and also Lamar's on a contract here. I'm
Mhm.
sure he wanted to be out there and he wanted to win that playoff game and go on, but
He has to think
he's
about his future.
yeah, he has to think about his future. He's coming up on a contract year. Harbaugh wants him back. I'm sure the Ravens want to work out a long term deal with him. I think he wants to work out a long term deal with the Ravens. But if you go out and ruin your knee, you're not going to
Yeah,
get that.
it goes away. Yeah,
So
and look what happened with a quarterback like Randall Cunningham when he got that knee injury in 1991. He was never the same, and it took him a while to get back to that really great form, obviously, that he reached in 1998. But even after that, he just wasn't the same. So, a knee injury like that, even though it may not be an ACL, a knee injury to a more mobile quarterback is extremely detrimental, especially if they're younger because they haven't been able to develop their passing game yet. So, you'd kind of be throwing them to the wolves, and it's not completely career suicide, but it's a step towards
pretty
there.
close. But I think the biggest thing we got to talk about. How about big man Sam Hubbard returning a fumble 98 yards, and that was the game winning. That was the game winning play. Tyler
Yeah.
Huntley, they came out, said .6 yards away from the goal line, so about 2 feet, and Sam Hubbard returns it 98 yards. Mark Andrews almost had his DK Metcalf moment, almost got there, just barely got pushed out of the way, and that wins the game for him. I think this Bengals-Bills game is going to be good, but the Bills have looked a lot shakier than the Bengals did, in my opinion.
Um, I kind of agree with you there because I think the Bills have had a higher high than the Bengals have, and I think they have an overall better team. So, I understand like them looking more shaky.
Uh, Going to the Giants-Vikings game, we both said it. Giants were just able to take on the Vikings. The Vikings were a very fraudulent 13-4. I believe they were 13-4. They might have been 12-5, but
Yeah.
their record didn't speak to how good they were. They, yes, they won a lot of games, and I'm not saying they didn't deserve to win those games, but I believe 10 of their 13 wins were one possession games, and I believe 5 of those were won on game-winning field goals, including one against the Giants just a couple weeks prior to this game where they won off a 61-yard field goal. That's what gave me that idea that the Giants could come out and win this game. They gave them a fight a couple weeks ago, figured they could come back, win this, and I mean the biggest storyline there is Kirk Cousins throwing it short of the sticks on 4th down with the game on the line.
He threw a check down on. I mean, I always called Cousins check down Charlie, but I don't think you'd do something like that.
He did it against
'Cause
the
in the-
Eagles earlier in the season too to lose the
Yeah,
game.
it's the playoffs in that moment. I think you just have to kind of, even though it was the right like football play in terms of smarts, but you have to take a risk there because it's your
Yeah,
season
it's the
on the
playoffs.
line.
I think if there was no DB there or he was a little bit further back and you give Hawkinson time to catch that ball, turn around, and make a move, truck through the guy or whatever, maybe you get that, but there was a DB on him as soon as he touched that ball. So there was
Yeah.
really no shot of him being able to get that first down.
Cousins should have been able to read that.
Daniel Jones sat in the pocket all day, delivered some good balls, ran the ball quite a bit, didn't
For
take too
78
many
yards,
Yeah,
17 carries.
didn't take too many big hits. He looked good, played just a regular game in the playoffs, so he looked pretty good, and they come out with the win, a big win. Brian Dable, the mini bald man, making them look good over there in New York.
Yeah, I mean they've done a lot more than I thought they would. I didn't think they were that great to begin with in the beginning of the season, but they proved me wrong, and credit to them. And now they have a big playoff game against a division rival.
Real quick, before we move on to the Cowboys game, you think Daniel Jones gets a contract? I think he does.
Yeah, I think after what he's done, the improvement he's shown, unless you're getting Lamar, Daniel Jones is getting a quarterback. They're not going another route.
Just based off this past season, I'm getting a little scared of the Giants. if Daniel Jones plays like he did this season, he plays well. Saquon has revived his career. They get those two back in free agency this year. They get some wide receivers. They're a pretty scary team. Dexter Lawrence on defense is really good. Wink Martindale, now if he gets hired as a head coach, that'll be a big difference maker, but their defense was pretty good this season. I mean, they get a little bit of depth. They're going to be a rough team to play against.
Yeah, like I think everybody in the NFC East is a few steps away from being genuine contenders. Meaning, I think they can make it to the Super Bowl. If you look at the Cowboys, I just think they need to handle consistency and get another wide receiver and help the offensive line. That's only a few steps. The Eagles, they're obviously great. The Giants, we've talked about that. Even the Commanders, you put if they get the offensive coordinator right, if they get the quarterback right, and the defense continues to progress, they could be a dangerous team. So I think the Giants are dangerous because the amount of improvement they've shown this year, if that continues, then I think they're going to be a serious contender.
Yeah, Brian Dable brought out something in them that I didn't think they had. Mm-hmm. This is like the Jags. This was a 5-win team last season. They were a very bad team last season, and Brian Dable turned them around. Mm-hmm. Going to the Monday night game, Cowboys absolutely rock the Buccaneers. Do I think the Cowboys played well? Yes, Dak had 5 total touchdowns, north of 300 passing yards. Their tight end Dalton Schultz, 2 touchdowns. Tom Brady looked terrible. Never looked like he was comfortable in the pocket. Was thrown off of his back foot a lot.
He threw the ball 66 times, that's ridiculous.
But he just never looked comfortable in the game. I don't think Tom Brady ever got settled, and the Cowboys defense did a very good job of making him uncomfortable, and I think that was the big piece. And I don't know if you saw what I saw, but it looked like every ball that Tom Brady threw was off the mark. It was very rare that the ball actually made it to his receiver.
Yeah, and I think 2 big things that are coming out of this is I think Tom Brady's gone. Whether it's retirement or going to another team, he's not going to be coming back to the Buccaneers because he obviously fell out with the coach and he had him moved up to an executive role, and I think he's kind of been clashing with the offensive coordinator, and they actually fired Byron Leftwich.
Yeah.
The Bucs, so yeah, I think the Bucs next season aren't going to be good at all.
I don't know if he's going to be gone. I think he's going to stay. I think he's going to stay somewhere on the East Coast because obviously his family's still there. He's still a human.
I actually think the 2 most likely teams he's going to go to are out west, Vegas and the 49ers.
I've heard of the 49ers. 49ers I could see just because that was his that was his team. So 49ers I could see, but I could also see him wanting to stay out east so to be able to be with his family. But I don't think he's retiring. I don't either. I don't think he's ending on losing to the Cowboys. There is no way. I just can't see that. Like, he was 7-0 against the Cowboys up to that point, and I feel like him and Aaron Rodgers are 2 quarterbacks that always have their number, the Cowboys' number. I feel neither of those quarterbacks could go out losing to that team. So I don't think he's retiring. That might have been his last game as a Buck. I could see that, but if he goes anywhere else, I think it's a 1-year deal because Tom Brady did not look good at all this season. So it's a 1-year trial. If you play, we'll consider bringing you back, but you're probably just going to be a mentor for our rookie quarterback is what I think it's going to be, wherever he goes.
Well, I think he's going to be obviously a mentor, but he's going to start because he's not going to go anywhere where he's going to be a backup.
Yeah, he's going to start, but what I'm saying is, like, say he goes to Vegas. Vegas needs a quarterback, obviously, but they're also in a decent situation. They have Waller out there. They have Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs. They got a good team over there. But what I'm saying is Vegas drafts a quarterback at their little higher than 10, like 13 or 14 area. They draft a quarterback there, and then they can – actually, they're in the top 10, I believe, because I think they have a worse record than the Saints. So I think they're in the top 10. They get a quarterback. Tom Brady goes in there, mentors him, and then they let Tom Brady walk, and they now have a backup quarterback who was mentored by the GOAT.
Yeah.
So, I could see that happening too. Uh,
Vegas picks at 7.
7, okay. Uh, but that closes out the wild card weekend picks. Now, just because we were talking about it, we were alluding to it earlier, I want to go straight to the Cowboys 49ers game. 2 seed versus 5 seed. Now, I was saying earlier, 49ers looked human. They haven't faced a defense like the Cowboys defense. They're getting ready to play some hard defenses that they haven't really seen. I think Cowboys, Eagles, and even the Giants have really good defenses. So they're really about to get tested, in my opinion. I think this is a game that could really go either way. As much as it hurts me to say, I think Dallas could win this, but it depends on if Dak plays like last week Dak or regular season Dak. Because last week Dak did not look like the same Dak we saw in the regular season.
Yeah, and understand that, like what you said about the Niners, they're gearing up to play the Cowboys defense, but the Cowboys are gearing up to play the 49ers defense. And one thing that the Cowboys have always lacked in the past 20 years is, I think, consistency. Because you'd see them, like this one playoff game, they played great, but we do not know what will happen this game. And I think that's one of the big questions going into this is who's gonna be able to like be consistent, who's gonna be able to show up when it matters. Because obviously the question for the Niners is Brock Purdy, and the questions for the Cowboys is that they're the Cowboys.
I mean, here's my thing on the 49ers. I don't think there is no way Brock Purdy, let me just get the there is no way Brock Purdy is walking 8 straight games to the Super Bowl not losing a game. Like I don't see that happening. Don't get me wrong, Brock Purdy's playing really well. I think the weapons around him is a huge reason why he's doing well, and I'm not taking that away from him because of it. But you're talking 8 straight games in the NFL. You're playing harder and harder opponents every week. I just don't think he's winning 8 straight games to walk to the Super Bowl. That's my opinion. So whether it's this week or next week, I think something gets to him because obviously the Eagles and the Cowboys both had a top 5 defense. The Giants weren't quite up there, but don't look past Wink Martindale. Wink Martindale is a really smart coach, really smart defensive coordinator. So 49ers, even if they do win this game, I think they're going to be in for some rough sledding the next couple of weeks.
Well, you could say that for the Eagles as well, because there's still question marks.
I didn't say that they don't have question marks, but I'm saying Eagles don't have a rookie quarterback who's won 8 straight or 6 straight and there's just think when you're winning that much, you just got more pressure and pressure and pressure mounting on you. I'm not saying that the Eagles are going to win out and win the Super Bowl, but I think I'm just saying if there's a time that Brock Purdy is going to have a defense get to him, it's going to be these next 2 weeks. So I'm really interested to see how he takes that. Like you said, you saw where he got the playoff jitters a little bit in that first half against the Seahawks, and
he dealt with it.
It's a difference maker. So, I mean, I think San Fran will still win this game. They have something that'll help them over the Cowboys, which is their run game. So if they can get their run game going over the Cowboys, who have not been able to hold that back, they're going to be in the driver's seat for most of that game.
And the 49ers, they have a better offensive line. Their coaching staff, like their entire coaching staff has been there before. They made it to a Super Bowl and an NFC championship in the past 3 years. So I think that's something that needs to be taken into account. Understand that the whole rookie quarterback thing, but we saw people like Kurt Warner, his first year in the league, he won a Super Bowl. So it's not completely out of the question. I'm not comparing him to Kurt Warner. I'm just giving context as a rookie quarterback can do things like that. And with the Cowboys, I think they have a lot of things they need to answer to too, because Mike McCarthy, yes, he's an experienced coach. He won a Super Bowl, but pretty much everybody on that team, this is new ground for them. Because if you look at their entire roster, apart not even apart from anybody.
Yeah,
Every single
no one on this team has made it
yeah,
past the wild card
they
round.
have little to none playoff experience. This is the farthest they've gone since that
They they went to
Romo the Romo Packers game,
well, no,
like
they
the
did
Bryant
good.
Packers game.
They played the Packers in the divisional in
Oh
Dak's
yeah,
rookie
they did
season
have that bye.
because they had the bye weeks. But
Yeah,
they didn't win. They haven't won a playoff game. I don't think they've won a playoff game in Dak's tenure.
no,
No, I think they've won one actually. They have won one. I think they beat the Seahawks a couple seasons ago. But
they
they have so this is their second playoff win in Dak's tenure. If you want to double check me on that, while you double check that, I'm going to move on to the Eagles Giants game and talk about that one a little bit. I'm going to be honest. This one scares me a little bit. Obviously, Eagles have played the Giants twice already. I don't really count that second game though, as the Eagles, I think, were just trying to get by. They had Jalen Hurts still kind of nursing that injury, but they needed to play him to make sure that we were going to get that one seed because they needed it for people to get healthy. Because now Lane Johnson said he's definitely playing. Jalen Hurts is officially off the injury report. Josh Sweat is playing. So just with that extra couple of weeks, we have healthy players. Miles Sanders, don't know entirely about his knee, but he had a couple more weeks to rest. So we're getting a lot of big players coming back. And the first time they played, the Giants had a lot of injuries. So this is we're getting the real first taste of the Eagles-Giants like full rivalry that'll be coming out for the next couple of seasons to come.
yeah,
But looking
and
at it overall, I think the Eagles have a better, fuller roster. The Giants are fielding you, me, and one of our other buddies at wide receiver, essentially, with Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James, Darius Slayton. Like they don't really have anybody at wide
it's
receiver.
you, me, and Dylan at wide receiver.
Yeah, exactly. They have nobody at wide receiver. So as long as Darius Slay and James Bradbury don't decide to just forget how to play football, we're in the driver's seat there. We have a better tight end than them. I don't even know who their tight end is. I'm going to be completely honest. So they're just if they do what they have done all season with their game plan, which is shut them down and score early and make them pass the ball, they'll win this game handily. And I think they're going to do that. Like I said, Eagles have a better overall team.
I think they'll win handily because, for one thing, it's the NFL. Just because a team is supposed to win doesn't always mean it should. For example, 1983 Super Bowl, they had the highest scoring offense up to that point in NFL history, but we got trounced by the Raiders. So
I'm not saying handily like they're gonna smoke them. I'm saying they're gonna win, and it's not. I don't think there's gonna be a point in the game where I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, I think the Eagles are gonna lose this game. I'm saying they're gonna win handily. Like they won't have to worry about losing.
I think it will be because this one thing is that the Giants have been playing playoff football for a lot longer than the Eagles have. The Eagles have secured everything in advance, and we've seen that could be a big factor throughout sports. Remember back in 2020 when the Flyers.
You just got to think of the NHL. Yeah, NHL. In general.
Yeah, NHL. The Flyers maybe could have made a very deep playoff run because they had been playing playoff hockey for so long up to that point, and they already had momentum built. So, and the Giants, they're coming off of a big confidence booster off the Vikings, and even the week before that, I think they saw that even against their backups, they can do something against the Eagles. And obviously, it's a division matchup, so we don't know between these two. I'm not sure who's going to win yet, but I think it's going to be a very close game, and I could see it going back and forth.
I'm picking the Eagles to win. I have faith in them. I don't see them losing this game. I don't think the Giants come close to the type of roster that the Eagles have.